we're always comparing each other, aren't we? Are we living up to our expectations? Whether we look at someone's car, the way their physique, how much they're earning.
हाय गाइस वेलकम टू डीप टॉक में आपका आज एक बार फिर से स्वागत है. टुडे आई हैव इन डीप टॉक someone who's the world's number one transformation fitness trainer. I would say he's not just a fitness trainer, he's one of the biggest fitness entrepreneurs. And I'll give you two words which will make you immediately connect to him. He's also the trainer for Hrithik Roshan. Please welcome Kris Gethin.
Thank you very much for having me, buddy.
Thank you. And since Kris is comfortable in Hindi, we are going to do this entirely in Hindi.
Well, you'll see me getting comfortable, very uncomfortable.
But my Hindi is not so good, so we'll have to do it in English. If it's okay with you, Kris.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Tika, yeah, Archer.
You know a little bit Hindi?
Much, but a little. I pick up things every now and again. If someone's talking about me, I let on that I know what they're talking about.
Kris, do you know the abuses?
No, I don't. Of course not.
Okay, you can't go. I mean, I'll tell you some abuses. Have you never heard like Behen dash Ma?
No.
Okay, we need to talk later. Okay, because it's a family-friendly channel, but sometimes we use abuses as a form of love.
Like a term of endearment as
Yeah.
well.
You do
Okay.
English too. With your best friends, you'll like.
For sure. Especially in the UK, and I was living in Australia for a while, and they use it all the time as a term of endearment.
Yeah, so we are kind of like that. So we will talk about that later. Kris is also the reason why the Hrithik Roshan movie is called Krish.
Of course, yeah, named after myself. They just misspelt it.
Yeah. No, that we do for numerology and for superstition, like the priest or somebody will say that, some astrologer will say you must put an extra edge. But is that how it happened? Did you name yourself Kris, or they named the movie after?
Just meant to be. But ever since then, my name is now spelt as Krish instead of Chris. Whenever a lot of people address me here, and if it's in written format, that's how they do it.
Wow. And one of my most popular books and movies is Two States, in which the hero is called Krish.
Oh, interesting.
So Krish comes from Krishna.
Yeah.
But your Kris comes from?
Christian.
Oh, so that's your full name.
Yeah.
So
Only my mum says that, though, if I've done something bad.
Okay. And I must say, Kris, I am most nervous today. I don't get nervous in my own podcast, but I am nervous today because I've never had someone who is so fit on my podcast. And although I try to work out, I I can feel like, compared to you, I'll be looking like, I don't know.
I think that's what happens to a lot of people that have insecurities when they're growing up. We try to build ourselves up with this larger vessel so then we can hide a little bit of our insecurity. But in doing so, sometimes we impend insecurities in other people. Well, and that's not really the intention, because we're always comparing each other, aren't we? Are we living up to our expectations? Whether we look at someone's car, the way their physique, how much they're earning. And now with social platforms, it's a constant battle of insecurity. It's not the intention, but I can.
That's interesting. As a fitness trainer, you look at the psychology as well. Is that a big part of fitness?
It's all of it. You are as much, I'd say, a psychologist or a life coach, a confidant, than you are a trainer, because you have to get into the head. Because everybody knows how to apply. A lot of that, we all know we need to move more, we need to eat a certain way, but it's very difficult to do so because we get in our own way. So we have to heighten our senses to what we really want, what we want to feel. Instead, we're just getting this dopamine overflow by constant noise, engagement, phones. So we lose sight of what is important and our perception of how to do these things. If we're to compare ourselves to some people that don't have the opportunity to exercise or to choose what to eat, then all of a sudden it's easy. But we don't allow that to get into our head. We allow ourselves to get into our heads and get in the way.
Okay. You already become full deep in deep talk. We're going to get to all this. This is very fascinating. And because you've touched on so many different concepts. But I always like to begin my thing with getting, especially since many people know you, but many people may not know you who are watching this. Um, Tell us about your journey. Where were you born? Where were you? What kind of family were you born in? A very rich family? Were you, what were you like as a child? What was school like? Tell me that age from 0 to 10. What was Kris like?
Okay. Well, I grew up on a farm as an only child up until the age of 9
Where?
in Wales, mid Wales. So grew up on a farm. All my family are farmers.
What did they grow?
Well, we had like sheep, we had cattle. We never grew anything. We grew in a garden, whether
Animal farm.
animal farming. Yeah, animal farming. So at a very young age, I learned hard work ethic, waking up at an early time, which has pretty much scarred me to this day because I still wake up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Um, and I loved it.
What work did you do as a child?
So I'd help dad on the farm a little earlier, before starting school, whether that be like, feeding a chicken, feeding a sheep, depending what time of year, if it was lambing. We didn't have much money at all. So father was always working on cars to fix them up, so we had a car that was drivable or to sell a car. And he would do the same with like building trailers, building garden furniture. And so I'd always have to help in some way, shape, or form.
Like you'd be the guy, his assistant,
Yeah.
carrying the box of tools or whatever.
Yeah, holding the bit of sheet metal while he's welding it, and I have to turn away so I don't get blinded. And loads of things like that.
Tell me something interesting about sheep that we wouldn't know.
Sheep. Well, I could tell you something interesting is that we had a donkey. We'd have horses, we had a donkey, and this donkey would always be crying because it wanted like company or a partner.
For love.
Yeah, maybe love. I wasn't going to give him that. So we'd put a sheep in there with them, and they would become best friends. The sheep would become best friends with the animal, like the horse or the donkey, and vice versa. And they're like best friends. And if you would separate them, they'd both cry.
Wow. So such is the need to, even if it's not the same species, such is the need to have company.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
human beings are even more so.
For sure, there's no doubt about it. If we study the blue zones, so the blue zones, are you aware of the blue zones? They studied the blue zones where there's people that live to a disproportionate age, like centenarians, in good health. South of India used to be one of those places. So you have like Okinawa, you have Sardinia, you have various places in Costa Rica. And one of the biggest things that they've noticed that is a common denominator with all of those places and why they live to such a long age is social connection. Very family orientated. They eat together, they celebrate together. And that's one thing that, of course, with the inclusion now of social platforms, people are a little bit more disengaged.
Yeah. I think just do a study of people who do a lot of Instagram. Do they live long or my
Maybe.
guess is not very long.
Maybe. Like I was just speaking to a doctor yesterday, and they actually have terms now for the spinal conditions they have associated to texting and the onset of early osteoarthritis.
Wow.
Because of all the text. It's not texting, scrolling.
Wow. Even that's like causing arthritis.
It's insane.
Just a touch. I'm just touching it.
Yeah, but that repetitive, you can't call it carpal tunnel, but that repetitiveness of it with that pressure, and we are basically the guinea pigs now because we haven't got generations to look back upon, but they're seeing the early onset of osteoarthritis already.
Did you milk cows or sheep or you don't milk sheep, right?
No, I don't think you're supposed to, but maybe people do.
Oh, there is goat milk in India.
Goat milk, yeah, for sure. Goat
But
milk,
not sheep milk.
not sheep milk, but yeah, cows, yeah, definitely milk cows for sure.
You've done it.
Yeah, the crazy thing is that what I love about India is that you can get raw A2 milk here. That's not pasteurized or anything like that. Where that's illegal in the UK and
Yeah.
the US. Yeah, you can get it if you go straight to the farmer. It's very, very difficult. They have to, by law, like pasteurize it.
And is that better for you, raw milk? As long as it's clean and it's
Of course. Like the crazy thing is that you can go to the supermarket and you can purchase a little Tetra Pak or a bottle for a kid, a little tiny kid that has artificial colors, dyes, numbers.
strawberry milk.
Yeah, exactly.
No
Milk,
strawberries in it.
2% milk in it. But you cannot go and purchase raw milk. It's crazy. It's insane. But and now we don't have the enzymes to break down the lactase in that milk. You know, we're all lactose intolerant because all of the raw cultures have now been destroyed in a lot of these like milks or these foods. So our bodies are now not adjusted to it. So if somebody does drink raw milk, they have to scale bit by bit, week by week.
You know, I discovered I have lactose intolerance like now, like at age 47, 48. Just kind of late, and I wasn't paying attention. But then I started, one of my friends had it, and he said he discovered it late. And I then did some experiments on cutting dairy out, and I thought I was sleeping much better. And when I have dairy, I wake up a lot more. My stomach feels uneasy.
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
For sure, you know, you see that with like gluten, you see that with various allergens and milk across the board now
It's
because
like 70%. People say like 70% people are lactose intolerant.
because the forms of these consumable goods, whether it comes in a form or fluid, is not created the way it should be for human digestion. You know, at one point, you know, we got genetically modified food. If you look at like the stem of a grain, that grain goes to the top of the stem. The rest of this is the stalk. But now they've genetically modified it now, so the grain goes all the way down. And our bodies are just not designed for all this modification. And then, of course, we've got the herbicides with pesticides in the cows consuming the antibiotics. We actually, as humans, consume more antibiotics from the food that we eat than what's being prescribed to us now.
Wow.
Yeah, so, you know, you talk about allergens, gut dysbiosis, leaky gut syndrome. Well, look at what we're eating, you know, antibiotics that we're consuming.
That is a bit quite scary actually. And milk, you know, is a very touchy topic in India because milk is seen as very, it's like mother's milk. It's seen as something very pure. And to think that milk is not good for you is a touchy one. It's one of those barbed wire topics, one of those controversial topics. But turns out for a lot of people it's not good because they're not digesting it anyway.
Yeah, because of these lactose, you know, they've lost the lactase and not able to break it down. Whereas, for instance, you can consume, like I've seen this with cystic fibrosis sufferers where they cannot consume a normal milk. However, they can consume a whey protein powder isolate that has been enhanced with digestive enzymes to help break down that protein fraction or peptide into an easier to digest smaller peptide. But then they're just not going to get that from milk that's being treated.
So now you're talking all these peptides and digestion, but let's go back. You were at the age of young age, you were just like helping donkeys find company, literally. Did I bet at that point you never thought you were gonna be like famous or world famous or known or working with movie stars?
Yeah, I wouldn't say famous because I've seen fame, you know, with some of the people that I work with, but recognized.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I would Hrithik Roshan famous, and there is Kris Gethin famous, and I mean, you are famous, Chris.
I'd say recognized.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, I had no idea back then. I hated school. Didn't like school. I wasn't able to concentrate in school because I was being taught things that I wasn't interested in at that time. It didn't make sense to me. And at that time, so starting from the age of 8 years old, I started racing motocross on a weekend, and that consumed my life for the next 10, 11 years, just racing motocross everywhere.
What is that? How does that work?
So motocross is like off-road motorcycle racing. You know, you're going over jumps. You're basically in a dirt field and you're racing against a lot of other riders. And I loved it. You know, it's very motocross is huge in Wales, and
There was no bodybuilding happening then, or
nothing whatsoever.
what did you look like then?
Very skinny.
Oh,
Because I
really?
was trying to be as light as I possibly could to race on a motocross bike and have that advantage of being a little bit lighter. So I did, you know, I suffered severely from asthma. I had croup as a very young child. I was ambulanced to hospital at the age of like 3 years old, almost died. And asthma since that moment, which ran in the family, eczema or asthma, was very, very bad. So I had a lot of difficulty finishing races at a high speed because of this weakness. So I did a lot of training, a lot of running, a lot of mountain biking, a lot of swimming just to keep my cardiovascular fitness up. I wasn't doing any resistance training.
Nothing.
No, it's more used in motocross today for weight training. We know the positives of it. We didn't back then. So it was just a lot of cardio and very little muscle and not knowing anything about nutrition and just getting in as many calories as I possibly could to fuel my path.
You would eat anything at that time?
I was eating a lot.
Like what? Everything?
Yeah, and I was eating a lot that was on the farm, which was good. There's no doubt about it. But if I wanted to eat cereals in the morning, sure, I was eating a lot of sugary cereals.
What is your favorite cereal?
Is granola.
Granola.
Granola. Yeah, I love granola.
Is that good for you or not?
Unfortunately, not.
It's marketed as good. Like it's marketed as very good.
So I wear a blood glucose monitor. I'm not wearing one today. It's a 24-hour blood glucose monitor, and I've tested cereals such as Frosted Flakes, the Raggy cereal, Special K, all the cereals, and granola was so much worse. So much worse.
Frosties?
Well, think of the weight
Okay.
of Frosties in a bowl and the weight of granola. It's a lot heavier and it's dense. And then you've got like the dried fruits in there, like the raisins.
Aren't those good?
They are okay, but when you dry it out, you remove all the fluid and now you're just left with sugar. And then you have honey and syrup that's in that binds it, And then you have the grain that is usually coming from a smaller oat, like an instant oat, that does give you a much bigger blood sugar spike than a rolled oat, for instance. So all of this combined, and then you have the lactose coming from the milk on top of it. My blood sugar went to about 160, if not a bit more, and 130 is my danger zone.
Wow. And if you go to the supermarket and you see all the cereals on one side and with all this bright packaging for the kids, and then you have this granola and it'll have a picture of a village or like a cow or like whatever, something to show that this is so good for you. It looks brown, and crumbly and rustic. It looks like that.
And it tastes good.
It tastes damn good. So you're like, this can't be bad for me.
Yeah, but they even do it with cereals, don't they? With, I'll say, fortified with calcium and vitamin B.
Yeah.
Yet it's full of sugar, basically. I don't know if you know this, but Ansel Keys was a person that is behind this in the 1960s, I believe. And he was paid, basically, by... So he was a person that vilified fats as being bad back then, saying you shouldn't have, like, your your fried breakfast or anything like that, or your bacon and eggs, that's bad. And he was basically paid off $10,000, only $10,000, which really changed the face of the world, to come out with these studies to say you should stay away from these foods, they're bad for you. And hello, Kellogg's is about to launch all these cereals. So then the world started eating cereals and having a huge blood sugar spike in the morning, which created the addiction for the rest of the day because you'd have that crash following your cereal.
So obviously Kellogg's not sponsoring this and never will. But we are not here to help Kellogg's or anybody else. We are here to help the people watching this. Let me just put it out there. Cereals are not good for you.
No, definitely not.
Simple
as that. Simple as that. Like, this is the unfortunate thing. When I tested Special K, Special K is supposed to be healthy, Like, I remember my grandmother for years eating Special K because she was on a Weight Watchers diet and they suggested Special K. When I tested that on my blood glucose monitor, I had a spike. And I'm a healthy, active individual that is insulin sensitive. I've got a lot of muscle on my frame. So if it's having that effect on me, what effect is that having on my grandmother or a child? Not a good one.
No, and there are like, if you have ever made a trip to any average US supermarket or even UK or wherever, you see these cereals which are very beautifully, colorfully, clearly marketed to kids. Then there are cereals like Fruit Loops or Sour Patch cereal or Oreo cereal, with very familiar brands, things that are very tasty, and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and things like that. And then they have these Disney characters.
I was going to say that, yes, exactly.
Elsa from Frozen. And if Elsa from Frozen is on this thing, how can it be bad for me? And Elsa is obviously very slim and petite in that thing because that's an animated character.
And sometimes they'll have a little toy inside that you can collect.
Toy. So it's seductive for me at 48. I want to kind of live that life and open that box and find that toy. Imagine for 5-year-old, 2-year-old, 8-year-old, whatever, and it's perfectly legal.
Yeah.
It's absolute. In fact, on cigarettes, we put warnings now. In India, there's some really bad pictures of
Yeah, I've seen them.
lungs and all those things. But we don't put pictures of fat kids on cereal boxes or kids with fatty liver or these are real things, right? This is happening.
Sure, and like who stops at a, like with adults in particular, who stops at a bowl? A lot of people have a bowl and they'll consume it so quick, distracted while they're scrolling, watching a TV. So they're not even registering that they're full now because they're distracted. They're not in that rest and digest state. So they'll have another bowl because they're not satisfied.
Yeah. I mean, it's the serving size written there is 30 grams. 30 grams. And it's like a dry cereal. So 30 grams is like what it'll easily fit in the palm of my hand. And if that can't be breakfast. Right.
No, and it's just all carbs and sugar. You're not having a balanced meal whatsoever.
So what is a good breakfast then?
I always try to have, and I suggest, not just for myself, because people will say, oh, you're a bodybuilder, of course you want protein, but there has to be some form of protein within that breakfast. So that could be a fish, that could be your eggs, it could be an omelet, along with some carbohydrates. Maybe that is some sourdough bread, or it could be oats, porridge.
So sourdough bread is okay?
Yeah, like a fermented sourdough. Fermented sourdough is usually pretty good. I like to go for a fermented kind, and or like oats or some.
For vegetarians.
Yeah, for a slower release. Carbohydrate, and if you're going to have a whole egg, then you're going to have some healthy fats, or you could put some nuts on top as your healthy fats. That's a more balanced diet. I try not to overdo the fats with the carbohydrates or the carbohydrates with fats because I want to give the body one fuel source to choose from as opposed to two and store the other. But it all depends on how active that individual is. So if you're going to have a more of a heavier carb meal, maybe you have your fats with your second or third meal. Try not to combine them too much together.
All right. Anyway, I keep digressing. Let's go back to your childhood. You were eating a lot. You were doing all this cardio. In fact, I have been, I remember once I was at the bank. I was working in a bank, and there's a Scottish guy, and you know how Scots are very blunt. And I was gaining weight, and I said I have to lose weight, and he said the only way to lose weight is run like a madman, and you know that, bitch. And it's kind of true. Nothing makes you lose weight faster than running, right? Like in terms of speed and seeing the difference on the scale, and it also feels like you're doing something. Intuitively it feels like, oh my god, I'm running, I'm burning fuel. And I used to do that, and of course it would come back and this that, and then and at some point I didn't like the way I was looking also. I started looking very old and very gaunt in some ways. And you were saying you also used to do that only cardio.
Yeah, and just recently, when I say recently, like 2017, I was doing a lot of cardio then, but like I still do a lot of cardio. I started doing Ironmans, I started doing ultra marathons as well.
How did that happen? You were doing motorbikes, and then were trying to build strength. How did you get into this whole fitness?
For bodybuilding, yeah. So it's through injuries because I accumulated a lot of injuries through motocross over the years. Yeah.
Banged your bike or?
Falling, crashing all the time. Yeah, motocross is one of the most extreme, dangerous sports in the world you can ever choose because if you're jumping 50 foot and you're trying to race other people as fast as you possibly can for 30 minutes,
You will hurt yourself.
of course, it's not a matter of, yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Yeah, I've lost some friends to motocross,
Died.
Paralyzed. Yeah, it happens. It happens. It happens today. Um, so yeah, a lot of those injuries I accumulated over the years.
Why were you doing something so crazy?
I was addicted to adrenaline, and after a while, it becomes your identity, and you don't feel that you feel alive or have a purpose without it. So once you retire from one, it's like, where else can I get it? So then I started doing downhill mountain bike racing and getting it from there, and that was not as fulfilling as motocross. So then alcohol and drugs.
Really, you went through that phase too.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it. What is really happening? You started doing biking, it gave you a thrill. Adrenaline is that thrill inducing, kind of brain chemical, if you can call it. neurotransmitter. And then you're saying you tried to go to some other mountain biking, downhill racing, which sounds again very dangerous to me.
Yeah, there was no like lifts where in the UK so much because there's no skiing. You know, now that's what I do. I go up like on a chairlift. But back then it was like you'd go back and downhill mountain biking was a new sport then. So we'd all get taken up in the back of a tractor trailer to a top of a hill, and then we'd all race down like a slalom style through the
See,
forestry.
now that you look back, you feel it was like a drug.
Oh, for sure. No doubt about it.
It wasn't so much like this is my, because how was it your passion? You know how some people say this is my passion, motocross is my passion. How do you know that it was not a passion but a drug?
I think it was a bit of both because I felt like somebody doing it because in school I was a nobody. I didn't want to be there. I felt stupid. The teachers would tell me I'm stupid. And where I would live for that weekend where I could actually be somebody and be something and be happy. You know, I feel myself. So I was really at home there because I had a passion for this. I really enjoyed it. I'd spend my time during the week working on my motorbike. And I've always been somebody that has been very good in my own company. And I never liked team sports. And I've always done individualized sports. So that was home for me. I felt very secure in that environment.
And then you, with the injuries, you felt this is not worth it.
Yeah, well, I could only get sponsorship doing another sport called enduros, which is just riding all day. And I didn't enjoy that. That wasn't the thrill because I'd spent as much time in the hospital as I did on the racetrack. So that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to hang this up because it was a spinal injury that put an end to my career.
Oh, you had a proper,
Yeah.
what was the injury?
So I got a major curvature of my spine. It's like lordosis. And my spine is left aligned to my hips by about an inch and a half. So if you look at x-rays of my spine now, it's shifted to the right about an inch and a half because 70% of the corners on motocross tracks are left-hand corners. And over the years, it just kept pounding because I didn't have any muscle back then. If I knew what I know now, I would have done some more resistance training to take care of my skeletal system to keep it better aligned. But there was nothing taut holding my spine as much.
And then mountain biking, and then you said alcohol and drugs. How and why did that happen? For somebody who's so active, raised animals, farm boy, no bad influences, no trauma, childhood,
No,
just
none.
maybe a little boring sometimes. And
Bring it. No, it wasn't boring at all. It was an adventure on the farm. I loved
no,
it.
not farm, but like school. You're saying school
Yeah.
was boring,
Yeah.
but nothing to. How did the alcohol and drugs happen?
So I think a lot of people up, especially in a place where I came from in the UK, they'd probably started going to pubs maybe at like 16, 17, meeting girls and all that. I didn't do any of that because my life was traveling on weekends, racing. And then, when I got to my early 20s, I'm like, I started when I was racing motocross and definitely downhill mountain biking. Now I'm surrounded by an extreme crowd who will do extreme things for laughs, for fun. And I was part of that crowd. And then alcohol just tend to fit in pretty well. And then, when you felt really good and now you're losing even more inhibitions and doing crazier stuff, it's like, let's do more of this. And then through that, that was like a gateway to drugs.
What alcohol, beer or everything?
Mostly vodka and beer. Yeah, mostly vodka and
How
beer.
much are we talking? How much could you do at that time?
I could probably drink, I don't know, 12 to 15 pints and shots, probably 20 plus.
Wow, that is real abuse of your body.
Sure, for sure. And I think you build a tolerance, and I was just building a tolerance.
Yeah. And now we know this, now scientific studies have shown it's connected because the biking is giving a dopamine release, alcohol is giving a dopamine release. In the brain, it's all the same.
Yeah, for
In the
sure.
same. I mean, but the alcohol is without any productive pursuit. It's not to any good end. It's just a hack to that, like just open the dopamine tap, which is supposed to open when you do the work.
Yeah, and it's just a form of escapism because like I said, I'd lost my identity at this time. I didn't know what my identity was.
How old were you? 20s, you said.
Yeah, so I was like about 20 years old. at this time.
All your mates, all your friends were also like this.
A lot of them, yeah.
You know why I'm asking this? Because I talk to people as this is a motivation channel. So the company really determines who you become, right?
100%. 100%. And that's what led to me leaving Wales. You know, it's not that Wales was a bad place. I was just a weak person. And I was surrounded by a social community that I was very influenced by. So I knew, because I don't know how many times I'd wake up like on a Sunday or a Monday and go, oh my God, I'm never doing that again.
So a voice inside was telling you,
Oh, yeah.
dude, Chris, this is wrong.
It was. Definitely was. I could see, you know, a couple of my friends that aren't here now, what was happening to them, or getting locked up and just doing stupid stuff, because you'd hear about the stories that you did the following day and you're like, I did that? And I just thought, this is not, because, you know, where I came from is a small place, and for that to get back to my family and my parents, I didn't want that to happen, you know.
Yeah, sorry, this one.
I was going to say, one thing that really put the nail in that coffin is that I got arrested once with a couple of other people um, who had drugs. So nobody admitted to who had these drugs. So then they went and searched every one of our houses, and I was living with my parents. And they went back to my parents' place and woke them up with me handcuffed to this cop who was very tall, and about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was just disgraced by myself, with myself. I was just in full disgrace. Like, just I can remember how my father is looking at me right now. You know, I can remember that, and I thought, that's it. I've got to change my ways. I have to change my
Were
ways.
they telling you your parents were seeing this coming, or were they absolutely shocked when the cops came? Were you hiding this life from them, or they kind of were telling you, why are you going to the pub so much? Why you come back drunk? Why are you not taking charge of your life?
No, I think I was pretty good at hiding it. I think I was very good at that. You know, I'd make sure that I'd come back home at the right time, knowing that they're not there, or if they were there, that I was pretty good at just escaping or hiding it, wearing sunglasses or whatever. I think I was a pretty good actor. I've always been pretty good at marketing, and I was able to market myself to them and say everything's good, everything's fine. You know.
Yeah. No, because that's got a lot of relevance to India also, especially when you said yet you had to leave Wales, which I connected to the smaller towns of India where there is a huge amount of social connect, which is really good. Which is really good. India is a place where people really value relationships, friendships. I mean, the friendships are brotherhoods. It's not just like, hey, he's a friend, like a Facebook friend, or like stupid things. Everybody's a friend nowadays. But when we discuss that your company is really important, now you want to make a change for the better in your life. But at the same time, you don't want to hurt your buddies or abandon your buddies or be alone, like I said, donkey and the sheep.
Yeah.
Coming back to that, you're the happy donkey with your sheep, but the sheep's not leading you anywhere, and the donkey wants to, I don't know, become a horse or race or whatever. What advice would you give to, say, young boys living in various parts of India who are trapped in bad company? Bad company doesn't have to mean so bad that they're doing drugs, but it could just be they're aimless bunch of guys, um, checking Instagram reels all day, watching porn, wanking off to porn all night, playing video games, not really serious about their career, not working out, just letting life get on by. And they want to make a change. They don't. They A voice in their head is saying, "Dude, you got to do something." What would you tell them?
Yeah, don't allow yourself to get influenced by your immediate social circle. Unfortunately, today, I know social platforms can be a hindrance, but they can certainly be a help as well. Where there's social communities online that have with very similar people that have similar goals that will keep you accountable, and that sometimes they're better company than the ones in your immediate social circles. So unfortunately, at the time where you're feeling your weakest, you have to make that break. You have to make that separation. And the people that I separated from back then, I'm now very good friends with today, because I feel strong enough that I could spend time and not be influenced. And not all of those people are influenced themselves now. But at a time, it's like, look, if you're on a diet and you're addicted to sugar, then you don't go to the bakery. until you feel strong enough and empowered enough to go in there and have a coffee. I think that's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I would still not go to the bakery to have the coffee. Then I'm having such.
Well, some people can. Yeah,
I know.
like there's a place called the Cheesecake Factory in the US. They do a huge laundry lit of cheesecakes. But I go in there I go in there for a Cobb salad every time. People are like, what do you get in there? Cobb salad.
Yeah, that's, I've seen the Cheesecake Factory, and even a slice of cheesecake, if you Google it, it's like 1300 calories. One slice. Forget about the whole cake.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, they have one that's fat free, but that has more calories. It's sweetened with Splenda, and it's no, sorry, it's sugar free. It's sugar free, but it has more calories. It's just full of fat.
Okay. Interesting choices people have. America is something else, I must say. Even though we are also, there's a lot, we'll talk about the Indian diet and everything, and your idli video, which I saw. You're telling people to have half a idli. Half? Do you realize how many idlis people have?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. But that's a very interesting part of your life. You're saying, here's somebody, because to me, like what you just said, you can find an online community which can be like my, like I would tell people this: if you're watching this video, how you are living, do you think Kris and I would be proud of you if we saw you living like this? Now, Kris and I don't know you, but here we are in a community right here, right? So we are not friends with you, maybe directly hanging out with you every day, but you can imagine that would Kris and Chetan approve of this, my lifestyle? And I think the fact that see, this is my podcast, is it's not a fun channel. People who are coming here are really coming to level up, to improve themselves. So whatever you're saying, people are really going to listen. And now introducing you is that, yeah, entrepreneur, fitness champion, and Hrithik's trainer. But it's the same Kris who was getting arrested for drugs, had to leave his town, all his friends. So it's the same person, isn't it? Who can be successful, who can be a loser. So there is no such thing as you were basically living the loser life.
Sure, 100% for years.
So, but a loser tag is not fixed for life.
Of course not. No, it's like, some people are overweight. Doesn't mean that they're born to be overweight for the rest of their lives. You have to make the decision, but not only just be that student of learning, you have to be that student of application.
So, how did you go about changing that loser tag?
So when that tipping point in my life happened, that's when I realized, okay, I need to make a change. And the funny thing is, during my teenage years, even though I was racing motocross and I wasn't doing any weight training, I was buying bodybuilding magazines at a very young age because a lot of kids bought comic books, and I did occasionally. I loved Judge Dredd. But those bodybuilding magazines were like real life comic books for me. Seeing these people, and I'm like, wow, these people are real. And in the beginning, I'm just looking at the pictures, but then after a while, I'm just reading the articles, and I just thought it's fascinated. I was fascinated by it, but I knew that wasn't for me at that time because I couldn't be big and bulky.
You can't just read the magazines and become bulky.
No, unfortunately not.
I thought I'll be talking to you, and after the end of this podcast, I'll be fit.
Yeah, that correlation doesn't happen, I'm afraid.
I thought just talking to you may change my body, but I'll have to do the work. I'll have to do the work. Yes, go on. Sorry about the magazines.
And so I was very, very lucky that in a town close to me, there was an international health and sports therapy college. There's a college that had that. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to sign up and see if I can go for that. And I'm gonna work several jobs to support it. And that's what I did. I went and studied health. Well, because before that, rewind. I started reading these magazines again, and because I was dealing with so many physical issues from all these years of extreme sports, and particularly the back issue, I went to a lot of specialists, chiropractors, osteopaths, massage, acupuncture, and nothing could help me with the pain that I was dealing with. And I think that's why I was drinking and doing drugs, because I'd lost my purpose and I'm dealing with physical pain. And now I'm dealing with depression because I have no identity and I'm trying to mask it. I started doing physiotherapy. That physiotherapy included resistance training. When I started doing the resistance training, for a short while, I felt alleviated of the pain. So now my depressive symptoms are decreasing. And I thought, I need to know more about this. And I started reading a little bit more about it. And I found for the very first time in my life, I was able to retain content that I wasn't able to retain in school because I was actually enjoying this. I wanted to find out more. And that's when I decided I'm going to go and study this in college. And maybe that is something that could be my ticket out of here. And this is where I'm going to get this separation from this anxiety that I'm dealing with in a social community. So that's what I did. I went to college for 3 years to study it.
What did exactly what
International health and sports therapy, nutrition, massage therapy, physiotherapy.
which course and college, in case someone's interested in
Yeah,
it?
this college is no longer there. It was Colleague Powys, and is international health and sports therapy. And 2 years after I left, that college closed down.
Because of you?
Probably, yeah. I scarred them for life.
Standard. We can't do this anymore. No, I'm joking. So, but there are other colleges like that.
Yeah, yeah. And during my last year there, this this company called Steiner came and did a presentation and said, you can work on cruise liners, you can work on 5-star cruise liners as a massage therapist or a personal trainer or a hairdresser, because in this college they did holistic therapy, they did beauty therapy, they did hairdressing, so all these different courses. And I thought, I'm going to sign up for that. And I went to Swansea, had an interview to see if I had what it took to be accepted to work on one of these cruise liners. They accepted me then for training in London, and I went and did training in London for like marine life and what products that you're using, and so you're educated on the products that you're suggesting. And I got a contract to work on a 5-star cruise liner out of Key West, Florida, and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I did that then for about 8 months.
Lived on a ship.
Lived on a ship for 8 months, but unfortunately, I started a spiral again because alcohol was very cheap. It's tax-free. You're in the middle of the ocean, so that was cheap. And then you had a staff discount.
Staff discount.
Staff discount, and everything just goes on your everything goes on your key card, on your room card. So it's easy. It's rounds on me and everyone else. Most people that were working on there, because they're all young, from Africa, from Australia, from US, from India, everyone's on there, and you're all having fun. You're getting to meet people, and so I started to spiral out.
So you are doing holistic therapy for your clients, but you're drinking away at night.
I was doing massage therapy. Well, I started with personal training, but then I found out, oh, Americans tip, because there's no tipping culture in the UK. We're very tight. And so I thought, well, I've got my massage therapy qualifications. Let me see if I can transfer, because they were tipping the massage therapists more than the personal trainers. So I was doing massage therapy. So yeah, I was doing massage with a hangover.
Wow. So you think there's always a risk that you could lapse back. Like on one hand, you did that course, came on a job on a ship, turned your life around a little bit, but you're saying one can easily lapse
I
back.
turned my back. I turned my back and thought everything's okay. And you have to work at these things. Some people aren't naturally happy and they have to work on their happiness. They're very depressed. And it's something that you just have to work on. And I just realized that I had this thing in me that recognized that I needed some sort of adrenaline fix. And I was weak at that time. And, one drink and one night turned to 2 nights, and then we turned to 5 drinks and 3 nights. So it gradually scaled out of control again.
I don't think, Chris, anybody is naturally happy. We all have to work on it.
Yeah.
That this belief that it's nice that you think that some of us have to work on happiness. I think everyone has to work. Happiness is work. It doesn't just come ringing the bell. It doesn't just come your brain wired to it. You have to do the work.
You have to work. You have to. I work in it to this day. Like I went on a 10-day Vipassana recently because our lives can become complicated if we allow it to, or we create that complication. And sometimes we just need to be heightened to our own senses instead of the sensory overload that we're bombarded with.
Yes. Yes. And so you lapse back on the ship and you're saying it didn't work out after it. What happens? Like you really lapse back hard? Like was it really bad? Or was it just
It was bad enough. It wasn't drugs, but it was bad enough with the alcohol, which made me realize, okay, I need to reset the way that I'm thinking, move on to another goal, and create a new environment. So I met a girl on the cruise liner who was Australian. She was coming up to the end of her contract, same time I was. And I said, I'll come over and visit Australia. Always wanted to go there. And I set my sights on competing in a natural bodybuilding show. I went and watched a natural bodybuilding show when I was in Australia, and I thought, I'm going to do that. I didn't even know there was such a thing as natural body.
What is natural?
Drug free. So you get tested, like you'd get a blood test or urine test. You do a polygraph test.
Polygraph test, the lie detector.
Yeah.
That did you take steroids?
Yeah.
No.
You know, they'll ask funny questions. You know, they'll say, you know, what's in your bedroom? And you describe what's in your bedroom. How old are you? Who's the president? What steroids have you taken? You know, they just kind of throw it in there. And so I thought, okay, I know I'm an extreme character. There's no doubt about it. I'm an all or nothing person. I've recognized this now through faults. And I thought, okay, I need to set myself on a goal because I'm pretty good at being competitive and sport orientated. So I'm going to do this competition at that time. This is what I'm going to do. And I just went tunnel focus.
And how would you pay the bills?
I I was doing personal training, so I needed to do cardio as I was getting ready for this bodybuilding show. So I had trifold leaflets made up, and I would just post thousands of these things through letterboxes saying that I offer 12-week transformations, something with a sense of urgency, 6-week transformation, 18-week transformations for those maybe obese or overweight.
In Australia.
In Australia. And I had like some resistance weights in the back of a very old Cortina car that was hanging together by a thread. And I bought some boxing mitts, some kick pads, a couple of kettlebells, an ab mat. So I was training people either at their homes or like on the beach or in a park, and that's how I started.
Okay, you got responses? Yeah.
Yeah, I was posting that many. I had to get a response, I guess. And I was trying to mail them in quite well-to-do areas. So I'd go to the beaches because I knew that's where you know high.
But you know, I've had many billionaires on this postcard. Like I'm talking actual billionaires who built businesses, and um, whether it's the founder of Ola, which is like India's Uber equivalent, and we have Ghazal who founded Mama Earth, and they all started like the Ola guy started as a travel agency, and he stood outside a cricket stadium giving out pamphlets because he says, "Where do I find people?" So Indians like to watch cricket, so he went out to the stadium and gave pamphlets. Ghazal started baby products, natural baby products. She stood outside a baby store with a little table and whichever mother was coming in. So every entrepreneur, because today you have a chain, you are a big entrepreneur, we're going to talk about that. But this is the first entrepreneurship you did where it's your business. You're not working for a cruise line or any other job. And you literally printed the brochure, sent 12,000 of them.
Thousands of them. Yeah, I was doing it every single morning when I was doing my cardio. And let's say if I'd go to a shopping mall, I'd go to every floor in the car park and put it under people's windscreen wipers as well. You know, I just have thousands of these things going out there, so I knew that had to hit.
You weren't like, okay, you made radical. One of the things I'm seeing about you is whenever you feel like things are not going okay, you like to change the environment completely.
Yeah, it's radical accountability.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, because well, you know, I like I said, I've recognized that I'm a little bit of an all or nothing character, so there's no in between really, and I've always felt good being self-sufficient. I think I was taught a lot of independence by my parents on a farm. You know, they'd go off and just leave me by myself for the day. You know, I'm like, fine, yeah, I'm good by myself.
When you go to Australia, of course, you knew one girl, but it's pretty, it could be lonely, right? You're putting these brochures, doing your cardio, but you don't know anybody.
I didn't think of it like that. I didn't think of it. I was just, as long as I'm a huge music person, as long as I got my headphones on, I've got company. Sometimes I find better company in a book where it's just a one-way street, and listening to records than actually communicating with people sometimes.
So while we did discuss the donkey and the sheep and the need for social connection and for a long life, What you're also telling me is that it's also important that you're happy alone.
For sure, you have to be comfortable with it.
A lot of people hate that.
Yeah, I know. I understand that. I see that. A lot of the time, I like going to cafes by myself, and I've just got a book on my computer. I really enjoy that. I'm able to get a little bit more creative. I'm sure, writing books yourself, you need to have a different space, but sometimes you need people around you, not necessarily to communicate with, but just to get the energy.
Right. So you things started in Australia. You did some training and you prepared for that bodybuilding contest. And
I got second in that bodybuilding show. I was hooked on it then. Really enjoyed to see that quantification on stage and go, wow, I did that with so many chest workouts, with so many shoulder workouts. I wonder what I could do if I pursue and do this again. Now I've got more knowledge and learned by my mistakes. And you don't really know how good you are until you're stood by someone else. So I was like, okay, now I've got a lot of faults here I need to work on. And it's just chipping away. And it prevented life from being like a white knuckle ride where I could kind of hold on to something and have a goal. And that just allowed me then to be a little bit better in business because now I'm more disciplined, I'm more
you
scheduled.
did not celebrate with beer and vodka
No, no, I did cross into an abyss of depression for a while though, because
in Australia.
yeah, when after the show, and I noticed this after every show that I did, and that's one of the reasons why I retired from bodybuilding, because I was so focused on that day. And didn't matter if I got first, didn't matter if I got second. All that discipline, that focus, the cardio, the workouts, the meals, and weighing everything to the gram, I've gone, okay, that's done now. What do I do now? You can't wait just to relax and chill. But then when you get there, you don't know how to relax and chill. So now you're anxious, and now you.
It's like exams, like people give exams and they're preparing for the big exam and they feel, let the exams get over. I'm going to have so much fun. And then they get over and you're like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
It happened to me when I was part of some movies. They were making movies based on my books. And when they were making the movies, it's just absorbed 2 years. And then the movie comes out. And even if it's a success, okay, you're happy. You celebrate for a few days. And then you're like, there's a big void. Luckily, I didn't face what I would term as depression, but I would definitely remember feeling void and a low. And in fact, that's part of the reason I started this YouTube. I don't want to be so dependent on those highs and lows of like mega victories, you know. There needs to be small victories every day. Today's victories, I have you on my channel. I'm using my channel to spread some positivity. That's enough for me. And I think that happens. And you're saying it happened at a bodybuilding level, that you feeling like, okay, what do I do with myself and what do I do with these biceps now?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think with motocross it's a little bit different because you could race every weekend. But with a bodybuilding show, it's like, okay, you do that show, and now there's not another one for like 6 months. And you've done the qualification to do like the national championship. So now you've qualified and you've competed top three in the national championships. Now you don't have to do a qualification. So you're going to take the year off to make yourself so much better. So you didn't have these little baby steps of milestones. Yeah, there was the urgency, but not the milestones. So it was a very difficult roller coaster over time. But I just noticed that if I kept myself extremely busy, it was um, it was a little bit easier to cope with. And so that's what I did. I just kept myself very, very busy. So I kept saving as much as I possibly could until I could afford a gym. So I purchased a gym in Australia, and that kept me very busy from opening the doors from say
Purchased the gym and ran it basically.
yeah, from 6 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night.
That was your first gym.
That was my first gym. Yeah,
Still there?
in Australia. I don't know. The last time I was there, it was.
Or you sold it then?
Yeah, 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 I sold it. I sold it. I was there in Australia about 6 years ago, and it was there then. And I really enjoyed mixed martial arts. And back then, it was called cage fighting, not like in the octagon or the UFC today. And I really, really enjoyed that. So on one side of the gym, I had kickboxing, which was a little bit more cardio focused. Uh, we did take people to the ring if they wanted to. And on the other end, I just had transformations. So I had a gym, but I didn't offer personal training one on one. Like you couldn't buy like a package or anything like that. You had to sign up for like 12 weeks or 18 weeks. Again, because for marketing purposes, I wanted to get a before and after picture because I knew if I published those pictures, or anyone came into my gym and I could show those before and after pictures, they're like, where do I sign up? Because people would come into my gym and go, oh, is that it? Is that all you got? It's so small. You only need one bench press. You only need one squat rack. You don't need three of them. But as soon as I showed them that picture, they're like, that doesn't matter now. Where do I sign? So that was my focus, was just those before and after pictures through transformation challenges.
Right. And how did this whole thing happen then? Now you have what? How many gyms do you have now?
10 here now.
10. And then this online thing. How did like this mega growth happen for you?
Okay, so a lot happened between then. In Australia, I moved to the US for a little while. Uh, I was working there then for like the largest uh, health and fitness platform in the world back then, bodybuilding.com. I was the editor in chief. And I wrote a book in collaboration with bodybuilding.com. And this was published by Simon and Schuster. And I had to do book launches, and one of them was here in India at Mumbai. And that book ended up in hands of Hrithik Roshan, and he was like, I need this guy to train me. I agreed to train him, and I was here for a little while, obviously traveling a lot around India.
By chance, Hrithik picked up the book. And then he said, I want to see this guy. You didn't know who Hrithik Roshan was.
Yeah, I was in a supermarket at the time in the UK, and my manager and friend Jag Chima called me up and said, "This guy Hrithik Roshan, he wants to talk to you." I'm like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Jag knew who he was, and then had a consultation with Hrithik. I knew he was serious. I could see from the look in his eye how badly he wanted it. And then during the time of me being in India, I recognized that there was a need of, I call them educational academies, but gyms here to help personal trainers and obviously help the community live a healthier lifestyle.
And then you met him, and what did he tell you?
Well, he told me that the doctors had told him that he should be bedbound because he ruptured a disc, yeah, ruptured a disc in his back, and he'd been, eating really, really bad because I guess he was dealing with depression at that time because of these back issues, and he's having to get ready, or was supposed to get ready for this movie Krish, that was a sequel to a previous movie, and he was about to postpone the shooting of it because of the state that he was in. If anybody's seen those before pictures, he was in quite a state. Yeah. Is pretty bad, yeah.
What was he eating then?
Anything and everything. He likes chocolate. He likes sweets. He likes sweets, and he likes traditional Indian foods. And that lights up his bliss point in his brain, I think, or used to back then. And so I could see that the guy was very serious, very smart guy, intellectual. We seemed to get on very well. So I thought, okay, I'll give this guy a shot. And I assumed that it'd take us about 12 weeks looking at the state that he was in, but I think we managed to pull it off in about 9.5 weeks. We actually transformed from then, from those before pictures.
What did you do to transform? And of course, what did he do to listen? He listened to you. So what did you direct him to do? And what did he do?
Like I said earlier, it's like getting in people's heads. Sometimes I'd give him a choice. Okay, with this set now, you can either do like a triple drop set or whatever, or we have to do this weight for this amount of reps. So I'd give him a choice, knowing that both of them were extremely hard, but allow him to choose what he believed was the easier one, when it came to the workouts. And the food, it was just consistency, like eating 6 small meals, protein based every day, so there's blood sugar stability, and we could create more insulin sensitivity in his body, because he was so insulin resistant at that time. He was sleeping late, changing his sleeping pattern. So instead of going to bed at like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, he'd have to go to bed at 9 o'clock at night, because our circadian rhythms, if we think of our ancestral design, his ancestors are designed to go to bed a little bit early, and so are we. But now we have artificial light, we have screen time, we have meetings at God knows what time, caffeine. We're up way later than what we should be. So our cortisol levels need to be lower, especially when they're spiked through workout and the stress of a calorie deficit and things like that. So it's completely changing his lifestyle, really. But luckily, he was and still is a phenomenal student. But there will be resistance in the beginning, as there always is. But you have to fight through that, and gain the trust of your clients and just have them believe, not only to have faith in me, but have faith in themselves. And a lot of people don't. The people always find the negatives within themselves instead of the positives.
Yes, actually, let's talk about that average person. This Hrithik, he is just extremely committed. Even though you may have seen the resistance, yeah, but in general, everything he approaches, not just his body, his dancing, his the way he takes on a character. He's known in the industry for working slow but working really deep into a project. But most people do not have that commitment, including me. You know what? Forget why should I make other people accountable? Let's make me accountable. I wore this today, first time. I've worn fitness clothes. So and I'm going to do this. Um, Look at me. What is wrong? What am I not doing right? I was very fat. I showed you my transformation pictures earlier. So I've made some change. All my life I've been a fat kid, fat man, fat groom at my wedding, fat till COVID. Or in the middle there was a phase where I lost a lot of weight through crazy running like a bitch, but that didn't last because I was just running like a bitch and not really knowing. This time I've managed to keep it off, but I'm still not like, I still am not, I don't have a six pack yet. um how do I get to that? And like, why is it not happening? I guess it's clearly not happening. I'm not doing the work. But
Maybe you are doing the work, but maybe you're doing the wrong work. I don't know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Like, what time do you go to bed at night?
10:30, 11.
Okay, that's not that bad. That's not bad. That's okay. And how much sleep are you getting roughly?
7, 6, 7.
That's good. Okay, how much are you drinking per day? Fluid, water.
You mean or alcohol? I am drinking. You know what? I have a problem with my water. I don't drink that much during the day, and then I keep a lot of bottles of water with me at night, and in the morning they're empty. I mean, I drink them. I wake up in the middle of the night to drink and then to use the bathroom.
Hmm. So what you've got to do, so you don't disturb your sleep, because maybe you think you're getting 7 hours, but unless you're measuring it, I measure mine on this Aura ring, maybe you're getting a lot less. Okay, but you need to drink obviously a lot of water, especially in a humid climate like Mumbai, where we perspire a little bit more. You should be drinking a good 4 or 5 liters minimum a day. Your body's made up of like 70% fluid, so you're going to perform a little bit better and flush a little bit easier. What about meals? How many meals a day?
Too.
Ooh, okay. So there's your problem. Now it's okay if you're following a fasting phase every now and again, but that should be cyclical because your metabolism is gonna become so slow that it's gonna go, you know what, Chetan's only gonna feed me now and not feed me again for about 8 hours. Where am I gonna get the energy from? Well, he's not gonna feed me, so I better store it. So you become a little bit more insulin resistant with that, and you store a lot more than you actually burn. The body is very, very smart. If you start feeding it little and often, eventually he'll think, okay, I know he's going to feed me in a couple of hours, so I'll just burn this off. And your metabolism becomes a lot faster, and your blood sugar levels will become much more stable. So it's little and often. Think of the size of the meals that you're having now, two of them, break them in half. So there's four. Now you just got to come up with another two. If you cannot eat them because of inconvenience, you're working, you're doing a podcast, drink it in the form of a protein shake.
All right. And in terms of workout, so like I said, I was fat earlier. I didn't. So now what I do is I wear this fitness watch. It's the and again nobody's paid us guys, so this is just what I use. It has this thing called the active rings, and 790 calories is my setting, which is like I will finish that ring every day. And for the last 4 years, I've finished it every day, not a single day missing. Either it could be a workout, either it could be a run. I still running is one of my favorite things.
Okay, so that's 700, 790. It has to be burnt throughout the day or just within your workout.
No, it is active calories throughout the day.
Okay, got it.
So of course, you burn some calories by doing nothing, but this is just when I move, it starts counting. So and I have to put it in there. I'm doing swimming, or if I'm doing things, it has the various things. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's basically forces me to move something every day. So it's been good. It has led me to some changes. I look very different from what I did, but my arms are not like yours, and it's not just the tattoo. We'll talk about the tattoos, but like, and I don't even need such big arms. you're a bodybuilder, I'm a writer. I can just type. I don't need very strong arms to type. But still, it'll be nice to get a little definition, and like, I don't want this little belly which refuses to go away. I mean, everything, I don't know.
Any resistance training?
I've now started doing because of watching videos like yours and everything. I do some, yes, once or twice a week.
So the number one thing that I suggest to everybody who wants to burn body fat is not cardio. Of course, cardio is great for your heart health, most important muscle. But if you want to burn fat and have some definition, you have to do resistance training. The more muscle density that you have, the more calories that is going to require just to maintain it, just to hold it, just to have it there. So just sat here on my butt right now, I'm burning a lot of calories because the muscle mass that I have. But it doesn't have to be huge muscles. It just needs to be a lot of muscle density. And you're only going to get that from resistance training. That resistance training only needs to be like 4 hours a week, just intense and hard. And when you're working your working sets, when you're training with those working sets, not your warm-up sets, every single one has to be to failure, meaning that you cannot perform one more rep even if your life depended on it. Okay? Because that gives the signal for your muscles to grow, because it doesn't like that trauma. And it thinks, how can I adapt for next week when he puts me through another chest and shoulder workout? I'm gonna have to get stronger, more denser.
Like, final point, like, just to failure. That's what to failure means. It means just push yourself. So what do you do if I can do, like, say 10 reps of something? I should add more weight.
No, 10 reps is perfect. Like around that rep range. At the end of the day, your body doesn't really know how much is written is on the bar. It understands failure. It understands failure, and it's going to recruit as many muscle fibers as possible just to survive that set or that last rep. Right? So you have to push that and try to push it a little bit more the week after and push it the week following. But your performance is always dictated by your recovery. You're going to recover with adequate sleep, being in a parasympathetic state, relaxed, rest and digest, meditate, and then obviously with your food, your nutrition, you are what you eat. So think about that. Your food is not supposed to be fun. It's fuel for the function of your workouts or the recovery from them.
Food is not supposed to be fun,
Eat fun foods because they'll kill you.
but that's all some people live for.
I know, that's the unfortunate thing.
They have died if you take away those fun foods.
But everything in balance, everything in moderation. Unfortunately, we're just seeing overconsumption of fun foods and not the balance. Like a lot of Indians will finish their meal with something sweet. They don't feel like it's complete unless they have something sweet.
It is about overfeeding.
Yeah.
If you come to my house and I don't overfeed you, then I don't know, I've failed.
I've offended a lot of families around India.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to try the sweets. And if it's Diwali, we eat. If it's festivals, we eat. If it's raining, we eat.
Like I did a video just before Diwali showing how to put together a healthy hamper. So you're not harming people's future when you're feeding this food that you think is loving them, but it's harming them. And that's what everybody should think. Like when they have food in front of them, okay, they'll look at it, but is it going to heal their future or is it going to harm their future? Chances are it's going to harm them. But we don't think about it until it's too late. And then what are we going to do with regret? There's nothing we can do about that.
Have you tried the sugar testing thing with Indian sweets?
Yes.
Like mithai. What we call it, mithai means sweets.
Yeah, is it like the roundish?
Yeah, anything. Mithai just means sweets.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like the square ones, the round. Yeah.
The round one's called laddu.
Has it got the foil on top? It looks like foil. Yeah.
Okay, that is cashew. Yeah, kaju katli. I think you probably had. So that is like marzipan. That's kind of right. Yeah, you tried that.
Tested a lot of them. Yeah, it's just sugar. All sugar will spike. Even if it's jaggery, it's a form of sugar. It spikes. And the more these spikes that we get, the more insulin resistant we get, the more closer to pre-diabetic we become and obese. Our estrogen levels go up, our testosterone levels come down.
Dates, all these things.
Dates are okay if you're an active individual. You're doing a lot of running. I do that when I do my ultra marathons or training for an Ironman. Then dates are good. It's a good fuel.
Marathons.
So unless you're going to burn it off, where's that fuel going to go? It's going to go.
Ultimately go there. You don't like carbs that much.
I love carbs.
Oh, you do.
I eat a lot of carbs, probably a lot more carbs than a lot of your listeners, but I eat the right carbs. I eat a lot of potatoes. I eat a lot of oats. Eat a lot of rice.
Rice is okay.
Yeah, rice is great. Rice is great. But, I have it clean. It's not fried. It's not got ghee in it. It's not got oil.
Dal is okay.
Dal is okay, yeah. Dal is okay. But again, in moderation.
Yeah, everything in moderation, but
Dal is fine.
paneer is okay.
Paneer is great. Yeah. Paneer, paneer is good. It's a great protein source, but just make sure it isn't just so heavy in fat.
Yeah, so you get those skimmed milk paneer. You get
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Because I've had the full fat and I tested that. I didn't get so much of a blood sugar spike, which was a good thing, but I felt so tired. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be an active individual if I'm tired.
yeah, that's okay. Dal's okay. Roti.
Roti's good. Yeah, roti's good in moderation. Yeah. Like that meta roti. Meta roti, have I got that correct? That was great. No spike with that. That was phenomenal.
Okay. And atta roti, like just whole wheat.
Whole wheat is okay. Yeah. Again, it all comes to how it's prepared. If there's a lot of fat in it, no.
No, obviously not. But I mean, I guess home food is normally Indian home food is India is one of those places where Indian home food varies a lot from Indian restaurant food. And a lot of times when foreigners come here, they eat out at restaurants. They don't really get a chance to eat Indian home food.
Yeah, that's right.
And they judge it on that. That Indian gravies are, oh my God, they're so rich. But that's because when it comes to hospitality, we believe adding fat and adding butter and adding these things is showing extra love.
Yeah.
How can we give you home food? Home food is so simple. You are our guest.
Yeah, exactly. I've noticed that, I'll ask and how it's prepared and I'll say, look, I don't want any oil. And they're like, oh, there's no oil, there's no butter, there's no ghee. And I'm like, I can taste it. Oh, it's just a little bit.
That doesn't count. What about like measuring foods? Like let's say now I'm finding it hard to lose the last 5 kilos. Do you think I should measure and
If you're the kind of person that can measure it, then please do. A lot of people say, oh, it's too complicated, throw their hands up in the air and start from scratch again. If you can, great. If not, just maybe measure it against the size of your palm. Okay, so, this is going to be my protein size, this is going to be my carbohydrate size. Okay, so I've got equal portions. Yeah, but kind of use it as a gauge. Don't, not get like a teaspoon and go, "Whoa, see how much I can heap on there." But use that as a gauge because we generally have this much protein and this much carbohydrate. So you can use that as more of a 50-50 ratio.
it's better? Okay, is ghee good?
Ghee is okay, yeah, but again, in moderation because if you have 9 calories per gram of that ghee, you've got a lot of calories you need to burn off. So you always have to consider that. Like some people would go, oh, but fruit is healthy. Yeah, fruit is healthy. Healthy is very different to fat loss because fruit is healthy, ghee is healthy. But if you're trying to burn fat, what do you want to burn off when you're running? Do you want to burn off the ghee? Do you want to burn off the bananas? Or do you want to burn off the fat? Because it's only going to choose one.
Yeah. There's a lot of I find it. Let's talk about drinking. Drinking is bad. We have established that. Yes. Is any drinking bad or a little bit is okay?
It's all bad, unfortunately, but there are better choices that you can make given the choice. So, for instance, a clean burning alcohol, let's say a white alcohol, let's say like a vodka or something like that, and maybe mix it with sparkling water as opposed to, or like a tonic water or soda water, as opposed to like a diet Sprite or a Sprite or a Coke or anything like that, is going to be much better because at least you're hydrating yourself at the time as well.
Diet Coke is bad?
Diet Coke is bad. Yeah.
Really? It's got 0 calories.
No, but it's got a lot of sweeteners in there as well, a lot of artificial sweeteners.
That's not good.
It's not good. No, your body doesn't recognize it, doesn't realize what it is.
So it'll still cause the insulin spike.
It'll cause a little bit of an insulin spike, not so much, but that's not where the issue lies. Your body recognizes a sugar, it's just up to you to go burn it off. Okay, or do some activity immediately after you've had that sugar so you don't get so much of a spike. You can mitigate a lot of the damage. But with a sweetener and a lot of these artificial dyes, the body doesn't recognize it. It doesn't know how to process it. It's not got a calorific value. So what it tends to do is store it, okay? But not in the fat tissue, just around the fat tissue. Now, we find it a little bit more difficult to use this body fat because the toxin is in the way for that fat to get into the bloodstream to be utilized as energy.
Wow.
Okay, so we don't want to have that toxic buildup in our body.
Yeah. Even tonic water has calories, by the way.
Yeah, tonic. Yeah, soda water would be better. Soda water would be better. Yeah,
And that, but better will be no alcohol.
better is no alcohol. You know, there are certain things, maybe I shouldn't be an advocate saying this, but you know, like that electrolyte drink, you could put a flavored drink in there, but at least you're having electrolytes and antioxidants in there. So antioxidants can beat some of the free radical damage that is in the alcohol.
Will think you're really weird.
Yeah, of course. Well,
Vodka with electrolytes.
if you spend a lot of time with biohackers do this. They'll have like some bitters that will help mitigate some of the damage. They'll have different supplements like glutathione that will help mop up some of the ethanol and the aldehyde in there so you're not having as much liver damage. And that's a justification that they can have that drink. You know, it works. It does work.
Most of the time, though, I find okay, even if I don't feel like drinking, people say, "Gosh, it's so boring." It's the only drug. Alcohol is the only drug where people judge you if you don't have it.
Fine.
Drugs, they say, "Okay, good, you don't have cocaine. It's really good. Don't have it." Or like, "Don't have weed. Don't have it. It's not." People kind of understand it's bad, but alcohol, people like, "You don't drink? You must be a boring person."
If we look at the statistics of the damaging effects of MDMA, Molly, cocaine, heroin, alcohol is up the top.
Because it's
So widely consumed and easy to abuse and easy accessible, and it damages the brain much more than anything else. But then you've got organ failure on top of that.
and it's marketed as sexy, like a wine glass or like these beautiful cocktails and cocktail books. It's like there's an industry around it.
It's social connection.
It's social connect. They say that alcohol is the start of all things fun and all things bad.
Yeah. Well, it is the beginning because, like I experienced it, you lose your inhibition. If you were no good at communicating, now you are. You know, you can talk to a woman if you're a little shy. You know, so it's easy to get stuck into that culture and that social pipeline.
Yeah. What are you seeking, Chris?
Seeking happiness, being grateful, being present. You know, in this community, this conversation I'm having with you right now, appreciating this. You know, as opposed to thinking, okay, what have I got going on next, tomorrow, next month, next year, and living a little bit more present because I've always thought about the future too much and then worried and stressed about the past. And I think, you know, going on a Vipassana, for instance, has really helped with that.
What was that? You were quiet for 10 days? You don't talk?
No talking, no eye contact, no reading, no writing.
Like your brain reacts, like your especially the first few days, your brain rebels.
The first, like, it's a very emotional experience for the first 4 or 5 days, crying, you know, because
You're crying alone.
yeah, because there's a form of, I think we're always trying to avert from something or we're craving something. And when you're there, you're craving to get back out and you're averting being there. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. What have I thought about? Why have I done this? You know, but you recognize, okay, this is exactly what I'm supposed to do because I'm supposed to be in a state of equanimity. But instead, I'm in aversion and in crave. You know, so you have to really stick it out, and it's difficult. But the thing is, you speak to other people, and they all say it's coming. They all say the same thing, so you know to expect it. But it doesn't make it much easier, you know. But it's the most rewarding thing one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Like, I've tried plant medicine. I've traveled to Costa Rica to do ayahuasca, and I've gone into a clinical setting and done ketamine, and I never really found the answer of what I was trying to look for until I did something that didn't require any mind altering drug. It was just being alone and hearing my thoughts and allowing my thoughts to surface so I could just observe instead of judge, you know, and that was very, very powerful. But you have to keep it up. You know, fortunately, in a place like India, it's a little bit easier to continue because you have that more spiritual connection, I think, where you do still have to meditate in the morning and at night. So I think it's very important.
What answers did you get?
That I should focus on my own happiness instead of trying to allow my happiness being dependent on someone else's. You know, like, you know, if you see, let's say it's your parents, for instance, and you think, God, they're not really happy. I want them to be happy. Now that causes you to be unhappy. So I think just observing all these thoughts and allowing them to come to the surface so they could kind of dissipate is very important. But it takes time because I find it very difficult to do it in this society that we have that's constant noise pollution, it's light pollution, and distraction.
In fact, one of the Namita Thapar who came earlier, she runs a big company, pharma company. She said, "Be yourself. The world will adjust."
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Another psychologist came. I had a psychiatrist, Ashika, who said, "Other people's feelings are not your responsibility."
Yeah,
And you're kind of alluding to someone like that. Basically, you have to. So if you keep seeking validation from others, it's not going to work. Do you? What? I'm going to ask you this. I don't know if anyone is asking. Are you chasing highs, Kris? Motocross racing, riding down mountain bikes, alcohol, drugs, bodybuilding competitions, tattoos,
yeah, I think I am. I'm seeking highs. Yeah.
ayahuasca. You're seeking highs, and I want to ask you the difference between being seeking highs and being high and having happiness. What's the difference? What have you learned so far? I know you're still learning. You don't have the final answer yet.
Happiness has longevity to it, where highs have lows as well, you know. And I think it's a shallow form of purpose if you're just seeking the highs. And I'm still working on it. You mentioned that for sure. And I think some of it is to do, especially when you are recognized, you're still seeking relevance in some way, shape, or form. You kind of don't want to lose go of that, even though sometimes you go, God, I just want to be off the grid. I want to travel in a van for a year. You still seek that validation and that recognition, you know.
Are
And
you at peace with yourself or not fully there?
not fully yet, not fully yet. You know, I'm always seeking the next thing, whatever that next thing is, that's gonna feed, feed or fuel a passion that isn't always got a lot of longevity.
Is it real? Is it real? Are those highs real, or is it just your brain playing tricks on you?
It feels real at the time, feels very real, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult to enjoy it a lot longer than it should. You know, you should enjoy it a lot longer. You know, it's much like if you publish a book. It's like, okay, I should ride this now. I should enjoy this. Instead, you're like, okay, what's the next book that I'm going to write?
It's like surfing. It's a bit like surfing. You get that high of a wave and then it's going down. And the other thing I feel is like there's always been this search of identity in you to make your own identity. You've mentioned also the word identity. I want to have an identity, and I don't know. So many tattoos, the green hair. Is it all an expression? Or
That's Alim. I tell him to do whatever he wants, and he comes up with that.
all right. Okay, credit to him for that. It's pretty cool though. It's that's what I'm saying. Where is Kris going?
Yeah, true. Good question. Well, the tattoos I've always wanted, but when I was competing in bodybuilding, I knew that I couldn't because I'd get marked down, I'd get judged for having them in a bad way. Yeah, so I've always wanted tattoos. I had my very first tattoo when I was 16 years old on my shoulder here. There's a company called Bad Boy Clothing that I was sponsored by, and I had that tattooed.
You had the brand's name tattooed.
Yeah, it was like the bad boy symbol, like that on my shoulder, and I I grew out of that pretty quick, so I had it covered with a bigger one. And so I'd always had a passion for that. I just like the look of them. You know, a lot of people wear jewelry. I'm not a big jewelry person. I don't wear fancy watches or anything like that, even though I have started investing in them. I've just never been that guy. This is kind of like my jewelry, and I like it. You know, I like the look of it. You know, it's not so much. I don't think I'm seeking this in the wrong way. I did at sometimes when I didn't feel good about myself, and you know, as some people are into self harm, tattoos felt good back then.
I have had people tell me that they need the pain that comes in the tattoo to get over their pain.
Yeah, so like when I had this shin tattoo here in India, I was going through a bad time, a very, very bad time. I got diagnosed with mold toxicity, and one of the side effects that some people can get that I had was like really bad sleep. I was sleeping about 3 hours a night, and I wasn't a good person to be around. and I felt bad. I felt angry, felt I had a lot of anger, and felt depression in there as well from this mold toxicity. So the tattoos felt me made me feel good, but for a little while.
Yeah, you're very okay with being vulnerable, sharing your weaknesses, even though you've come from the fitness point of view, and you are right now giving me an interview, but you're very open about your own shortcomings or whatever weaknesses or things you've had to overcome. Despite you presenting this brand that, hey, I'm going to transform you, I'm going to get you sorted, you don't believe in presenting this perfect image of yours.
Well, I guess it's too late now if I was.
No, but that's really good. It's refreshing, it's authentic, it's real, and I think that's what made you take. Before you go, one question I want to ask: a lot of young boys and girls are phone addicted,
Yeah, no, no shit.
and they're not doing the work. And they say, "I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time. Can't you see? I'm so busy." And it's then you check their screen time, and yeah, 3 hours a day Instagram. So, what do you have to say to them? How do they get rid of that addiction?
Well, luckily, like I went down this biohacking rabbit hole several years ago, 2014 to be exact, and I looked at all the harmful effects of different things that could affect me because of this, like mold toxicity. But I realized, and this is a weird way how I came across it, I found that I had like a sensitivity to like too much electricity and EMF overload. So I went to a music festival in Las Vegas, outside of Las Vegas at the Speedway there. And even though I wasn't drinking, I wasn't doing drugs, I just felt like I had a massive hangover for several days. And a few people that was within our party said the same thing. And I thought to myself, because no one's phone was working at the Speedway because there was so many people there in this arena that our phones just stopped working. There was just so much EMF. And then where we staying in a hotel with his Wi-Fi, and we're in Las Vegas. And that's what made me really look into that. And I started speaking to a lot of doctors and professors and people who had a lot of knowledge when it came to earthing and grounding. And that's when I realized, okay, maybe there's an electrosensitivity thing. Because we don't see it, we don't believe it. Much like, the tobacco industry in the 60s. It's cool, it's okay, not knowing the damaging effects of it until much later. So that's when I really started going down that rabbit hole and doing whatever I could to protect myself. So this fanny pack that I've got here, you may think, oh, he's a bodybuilder, he's got whatever in there. This is a case that actually closes off all EMFs from my phone. So I have an EMF, like a Defender Shield case as well, that blocks out all EMFs from penetrating me. Um, we've had like a building biologist come to our house to check where the dirty electricity is. So I've realized that in doing all these little things, I've felt so much better. Not only am I protecting myself from that, but I'm more conscious about this device. I know that it gives me a dopamine fix when I look at the artificial blue light that penetrates my retina. And I get the dopamine fix when I'm scrolling as well, or going onto Amazon, or seeing if I've got a like or something like that. So I recognize that, and that's a damaging effect. So I realize, and this is what I ask myself all the time, and I want your listeners to ask themselves as well, what is my future self going to say? Is it going to say you should have spent more time on that phone looking at aimless crap? Basically, we're watching a reality show. That's all we're doing.
Love Island.
Love Island on the phone 24/7, but we've got so many other channels. We can watch TV, YouTube, watch this channel. We can go onto other people's socials. We can do Uber Eats, whatever it may be. It's drug, 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 drug that lights up the bliss point in our brain that creates this addiction. And now we've become a slave. We're supposed to use this. It's not supposed to use us, but it's using people, and they're allowing that to happen. Is it difficult? It's just like any drug, of course. But start off with maybe putting your phone on airplane mode. If there's an app that you're on all the time, let's say it's Instagram, sign out of it. It's another step for you to have to sign in and put in your password that may prevent you from just going, oh no, I have to sign in. Okay, I'll do it after. It's just little simple baby steps.
And so, where can people find you? apart from this podcast? What
There's me saying don't go on Instagram. Probably best to find me on Instagram. So it's Kris
you
KRIS.
have to do Instagram? Might as well like follow fitness instructors then.
Something that's
Like
educational.
having vacations in Maldives, she's not inviting you there.
Unfollow all of them and just follow us.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell these guys, this is not worth it. And somebody is liking those posts because they have millions of likes. And like, she's not inviting you, dude.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't waste your time, firstly. And second, it's bad for you. But yeah, where can so you can find you on Instagram? You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, Kris Gethin all across the board. On Twitter, it's Caged, Kaged, muscle, or my website, krisgethin.com.
Just Google him, you'll see lots and lots of things popping out. How was this experience for you?
Phenomenal. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Very different to a lot of interviews that I've done, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I promised you that this will be different. This is deep talk. We go deep. We are interested in the person, and I think I firmly believe as a storyteller that everyone has a great story in them, and especially when it's someone like you who's achieved a lot in a very unconventional way, there is a lot to learn just from that story, and hopefully you learned a little bit about yourself too from it.
I think the more that you hear about these things, you kind of reflect and adjust accordingly.
And guys, those who've been watching, you know what you have to do. The best way to support the channel is to like, subscribe, share, send it to your aunt, send it to all your WhatsApp groups, but also comment. And I promise you that Kris is going to read them.
I will.
He will read all the comments, good or bad, whether you agreed with him, whether you didn't agree with him. Fitness is and food is a very controversial topic. People like take positions like they take political positions, like no, this good, that good. So please, all that is for Kris to enjoy. But I think he was really positive and amazing. And you will find on my channel, people are really only coming here to learn. So you'll get only positive comments. Please do comment. It will help my channel's engagement for sure. But Kris would really love it. Kris, you gave us enormous information, enormous useful information, which people will just not find or not find all in one place. And thank you so much for opening about your life and your weaknesses. Because and why I bring those out is because people feel, oh, people like Kris and Hrithik are different. But now you said that no, even Hrithik has a weakness for sweets.
He has a lot of weaknesses, and he recognizes them, and that's the most important thing. You recognize them.
Recognize. So if you guys think that, oh, I am weak and these guys are superheroes, Avengers, it's not true. It's just Alim's done that hairstyle and he looks like X-Men. But I really feel we are all human beings and we all have our own struggles, but we can all get better. We can all improve. We can get better. And that's what life should be about.
A constant work in progress.
Constant work in process till get till the end of your day. So, guys, that was Kris Gethin. Hope you enjoyed the show. This was Deep Talk. Thank you for watching. Take care.